In the mid-2000s, consuming media meant managing a fleet of heavy, single-purpose hardware. You needed a deep cathode ray tube television for broadcasts, a dedicated MP3 player for digital audio, and a bulky desktop monitor just to look at your digital photos. Hardware manufacturers saw an opportunity to collapse this electronic sprawl. The industry goal was convergence, engineering multiple specific functions into one versatile machine to save space and streamline the user experience. One of the most of this was a device marketed as the album TV, the Visart DF-101. The device promised total utility. The top edge housed a 10-in-1 media reader capable of pulling JPEGs, MP3s, and MPEG video directly from a camera's memory card. It also featured an integrated analog antenna to pull in terrestrial broadcasts without a cable box.
For a consumer in 2005, a single slim screen sitting on a bedside table that could run a photo slideshow, play music, and tune in to local news offered a highly desirable level of convenience. It functioned as a rough draft for the modern smart display. But upon release, tech critics tore the hardware apart. Swedish tech magazine M3 published a scathing review headlined, "This art does not show the way." The rating box makes it clear. The concept was ambitious, but picture quality earned a dismal 4 out of 10, dragging the total down to a failing 5. This creates a confusing contradiction, a device packed with more functionality than its competitors that somehow ends up being less usable. This is the result of the Convergence Tax. When a limited production budget is split across a dozen secondary features, it inevitably starves the primary hardware, forcing a series of compromises that eventually cause the entire product experience to collapse. The DF-101 emerged during a massive manufacturing expansion in China, where factories were churning out electronics at breakneck speed. To compete with established premium brands, these manufacturers relied on a strategy of feature density. Instead of engineering one high-fidelity component, they prioritized quantitative specifications, like 10-in-1 card support, relying on the sheer volume of features to drive sales. Ironically, the digital logic side of the Visart was of strongest point. Reviewers praised the software, noting that the on-screen menus and file navigation systems were intuitive and well-organized. However, even the most elegant user interface cannot fix a physical deficiency in the display panel or the speakers. To understand why the Visart failed, we have to look past the menus and examine the actual quality of the hardware components. Let's look at the screen itself. The Visart used a 7-inch twisted pneumatic or TN-type LCD panel. TN panels were cost-effective, but they suffered from severe light bleed, meaning the internal backlight constantly leaked through the liquid crystals. Because of this, blacks rendered as a murky, washed-out gray. Instead of displaying vibrant family photos, the screen produced pale colors and soft, noisy backgrounds that reviewers compared to the absolute worst days of early LCD technology. Furthermore, TN panels have incredibly restrictive viewing angles. Move slightly above or below the screen, and you experience gamma shift. The colors rapidly invert. This flaw was so severe that Visart had to include a physical picture frame kickstand, just so users could tilt the display directly into their exact line of sight. The audio engineering suffered the same fate. The slim picture frame chassis simply lacked the physical space for an internal acoustic chamber. The 2 tiny top-mounted speakers produced absolutely zero bass and distorted wildly during music playback. This is exactly how the Convergence Tax is paid. To afford the tuner, the card readers, and the slim aesthetic, the manufacturer slashed the budget on the 2 most critical components of any media player, the display panel and the acoustic speakers. The Visart's hardware flaws were compounded by terrible timing. It shipped with an analog tuner, just as countries across Europe and Asia were beginning their massive switchovers to digital broadcasting. Almost immediately, its primary selling point as a standalone television vanished. To pull a modern signal, users had to plug in external digital-to-analog converter boxes, which completely destroyed the device's compact, wireless appeal. Trying to bypass the internal tuner entirely didn't fix the problem either. Users hooked up high-quality external sources like DVD players or the original Xbox via the composite video inputs. Even with a perfectly clean signal, the image hit a hard, physical bottleneck. The screen's native resolution was only 640 by 480 pixels. It lacked the pixel density to display sharp imagery, no matter how good the source material was. The software's built-in zoom function, intended to help users see detail in their digital photos, only blew up those blurry pixels further, making the image visibly worse. The Visart DF-101 was a failed experiment, but it tested the waters for a form factor that we use constantly today. When modern tablets eventually succeeded at the album TV concept, they reversed the formula. Devices like the iPad poured massive engineering resources into securing a high-resolution, color-accurate display and resonant speakers first, before building secondary features on top of that foundation. The Visart proves that a long list of secondary features cannot compensate for a poor core experience. In product design, true utility comes from the quality of the hardware, not the quantity of its inputs.